Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and so very honored that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is returning to the show, Yevgenia Nayberg. She's here to celebrate her beautiful new picture book. It's called I Hate Borsch. Before we invite Yevgenia into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Holly Kinley and her book, Power Down and Parent Up. Holly Kinley is a thought leader in the field of psychology, and she's the author of 11 books. Power Down and Parent Up, Cyberbullying, Screen Dependence, and Raising Tech-Healthy Children will make a huge difference in your family's life. Has your child ever been cyberbullied? Has your child ever bullied others? Do you know what to do or how to respond? In Power Down and Parent Up, parents and guardians will learn how to protect their children from cyberbullying, how to intervene when the unthinkable happens, and how to prevent future incidents. It's a really amazing resource for parents and caregivers. Check it out today. Power Down, Parent Up by Holly Kinley. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by I Don't Want to Turn 3, the wonderful picture book by Gramps Jeffrey. When does a toddler start to learn right from wrong? What happens in a family that influences a decision going through a young mind? I Don't Want to Turn 3 explores the interactions between family that is happening in just about every single household in the world. Like Holly's book, I Don't Want to Turn 3 is a really wonderful resource for families. It can help kids learn how to make better choices for their lives. It can help your family grow closer together. Pick up your copy today. It's available on Amazon. I Don't Want to Turn 3 by Gramps Jeffrey. Joining us right now from sunny Miami in the beautiful state of Florida. Our guest is returning today. She's returning to celebrate her brand new book. It's called I Hate Borsch. Please welcome to the show, Yevgenia Nayberg. Hey, Yevgenia. How are you?
Hi, Jed. I'm great. Great talking to you again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. I love having you on. You have such an interesting perspective in a lot of things. The last thing that I thought I would find on one of your book titles is the word hate, because you're always such a bubbly, happy person. Tell us about I Hate Borsch, please.
Well, I Hate Borsch is a story of a little girl who grows up in Ukraine, in Kiev, and she hates borscht, which is a national dish, the national staple.
And I was sharing with you beforehand, I've never had borscht. So for maybe the few people out there who, like me, have never experienced, what is it?
Well, borscht is a soup. It's a vegetable soup, and there are millions of variations of that soup. And once you read a book, there is a recipe at the end of the book. So you have a chance to actually make one and see for yourself whether you're going to hate it or maybe love it.
I suppose that it's difficult. There are a lot of kids out there who grow up someplace where everybody loves the same dish and it's like everybody's favorite, but for that one kid, it just ain't happening. And I imagine they feel left out.
It could be that, but also I think we are so used to some things that we're supposed to hate. Let's say if my book was called I Hate Broccoli, nobody would be surprised about it. It's just a combination of hate and something unfamiliar or something sentimental and dear to your heart. That I guess makes you wonder. Mm-hmm. So it's a little author trick.
Yeah. What was it that inspired you to write this book?
Actually, it was not borscht at all. It was my thinking about the American foods that I've encountered when I came to this country. And originally I wanted to write a book about those weird things that seemed completely revolting to me or just plain strange. And I thought about writing a book about that, and I've been polling my immigrant friends and asking them about strange foods that they tried in America. But then eventually all of this grand idea became reduced to a single page in my book, where I do list some American foods.
What you have to, my curiosity is piqued. What was the food here in America that you found most weird or repulsive?
You'd be really surprised right now. Are you ready for it?
Okay, I'm ready.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
That's my staple.
I know. And so is borscht in my country. So this is how things interpret eventually the story.
That's wild. I understand my wife is repulsed by peanut butter and jelly because I have it so often. But wow, that's so. It is really interesting. We've talked a little bit with a guest not too long ago about. She wrote a story, and her character was originally from China and would bring in her traditional dishes to school, and she felt left out because kids would look at it and go, "Ugh, that's weird." I guess that's something lots of kids experience in their lives.
Absolutely. I remember that. I didn't come here as a kid, a little disclaimer. There's very little autobiographical material in the book, but I did come to America at some point, and I remember my roommate in graduate school. He just made fun of every single thing I ate. He, in the meantime, ate cold pizza standing up in the kitchen, and that was totally fine. Mm-hmm. But, of course, everything I ate was very peculiar to him and funny.
Oh, boy. Boy, oh boy. Isn't it strange how we grow up with something and we just think it's normal, and anything different, it's foreign and sometimes intimidating to us.
Absolutely. I find it very fascinating because, of course, this is not the first time I mentioned my surprise. Let's call it surprise mildly with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And people look at me and they say, but this is the favorite thing. This is the American staple, the most beloved dish of the United States. And we have these things that we find really trite and boring. And suddenly here they're so strangely exotic and exciting, hopefully, but sometimes just plain revolting. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I changed the way I ate when I became a dad, and because I wanted to be a better example. I'm never going to say I was a good example for eating with my kids, but I wanted to be better. I wanted to be better for my health. And a lot of the quote-unquote guy things that I used to eat as a kid and would wolf down mountains of them, like steak and cheese sandwiches and greasy hamburgers. I haven't had any of that for like 30 years, and now I used to love it. Now I find it repulsive when I'm looking at that, and I'm like, oh, I used to eat that stuff.
Yes, your taste does change. I think I'm not repulsed by any of my national foods, but I'm not very interested in them. Mm-hmm. And again, another disclaimer, I never hated borscht. My character hates borscht. I took borscht as something that was just a part of my life. And I make, I think, a fantastic borscht, but one of my kids loves it, and my other kid hates it, so go figure.
What was the weird, strange, exotic food that you encountered here in America that you fell in love with right away?
Wow. Well, first of all, we were sort of poor when we came here, so I didn't get to try a lot of exotic American foods. What did I like? I don't know. I don't know, probably something really boring to everyone. I think the fruit that I tasted here was really amazing. And I used to live in California, and I live in New York now, but I still miss Californian peaches. I ate this humongous Californian peaches and huge blueberries, the size of a baby's head that I've never seen growing up in Ukraine. So I would say that at first. Yeah.
I have this memory of being on my honeymoon with my beautiful wife in her native island of Puerto Rico and having a mango for the first time. And, you know, we're just walking by this fruit vendor on the street, and he said, "Hey, do you want a mango?" And I'm like, "I never had it. No, thanks." And he said, "Just try it." And he just sliced a little piece, and I ate it. And my head, it just exploded. Like, this is amazing. Where has it been all my life?
Right. I was surprised to learn that there are all kinds of mangoes, which of course makes perfect sense because there are all kinds of apples.
Mm-hmm.
And, but now, as you were talking, I remember the first food that I tried in America, in Pittsburgh. I remember that my first year in America, and there was avocado, and that was really exotic and unusual. And I thought, it's a nut. And that's what I said to a person who gave it to me. I said, "It tastes like a nut." And he said, "Yeah, a creamy nut." And he kind of spoiled it for me because I thought I made this wonderful comparison that's so strange and unusual. And he just sort of brought it back to something creamy and vegetable to me. But yeah, I remember my first avocado for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned your kids. Your kids must be growing up in a very different way than you did. What's that like as you're watching your kids grow up and here in the United States and you think back to your youth in Ukraine?
Well, my childhood was very strict. I think everyone who grew up around me, you know, the kids had to be quiet and they couldn't jump around. And all of that, I think, is very different because, of course, my kids could jump up and down as much as they want. But a lot of it is still similar because I bring a lot of my own sensibility to their childhood, whether it's a good thing or not. But my parents were always very ironic with me, sarcastic, I guess you can say. And I think I sort of continue with the same theme. So my kids are they respond really well to a sarcastic tone and humor.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I've noticed about your illustrations is they're really fun, but they're not childlike. I don't know if I'm explaining it right. You know, they're accessible for adults. I could see your illustrations fitting right in with the book that was originally written just for adults. Am I making sense at all?
Yes, absolutely. And I think we talked about it before when we talked about my other book, Typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you need to be condescending when you talk to kids. I think it's important to bring the kids up to your level. And the earlier you start, the better. It's like the whole concept of the big words. Mm-hmm. I don't think children care what kind of words they learn. They just learn what they hear. So same goes for the humor and same goes for complex. You can say sophisticated. I don't know if they're sophisticated, but I guess not childlike, sort of in a conventional sense, illustrations.
Yeah.
So I think kids can respond to whatever they see, and the earlier they start, the better.
Yeah, I agree, especially when it comes to language and music. I was never a big fan of playing my kids, quote unquote, kids music. We listened to music that we found that we all enjoyed and that we found, and it was difficult sometimes because a lot of the music that is popular has lyrics you don't want your kids listening to. So, you know, it was that, you know, finding music that was fun and hip but also had a lot of meaning to it.
Absolutely. Yes. I don't make things simpler for the kids. I think, they should just grow up as quickly as possible and read their own books. And it's going to be a smoother transition if they're introduced to something a little more complex early in life.
Yeah. You know, people listening would tell me I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about how you're feeling as you're looking across the ocean and seeing what's happening to your homeland at this time. And so how are you feeling, and how are you talking about this with your kids, if you are?
Well, this is devastating, of course, and it's just, it's heartbreaking to see, and it's surprising to see because I personally did not expect anything like this ever happen because I always thought these people were so close, and I never really thought of those countries as culturally separate countries. Something like this would have never crossed my mind. When I talk to my kids about it, I just make my position clear. Of course, I'm against the war, any war, for that matter. But also what's important for me is that my husband is from Russia. I'm from Ukraine. And I always tell my kids that you cannot really assume anything about a person just based on where this person is coming from. Both of us, both my husband and I, are anti-war. And I think it's important for my kids to know that they should not be embarrassed of their heritage, whatever it is, because it's not the war on them or their language or their culture. And I think this is something important for them to know going forward.
Yeah. I think you hit on something really, really important. I think it's important for us to help our kids distinguish between the Russian people and what the Russian government is doing. Just as if we're, there's a lot of friction between the United States and the Chinese government at this time. And it's important for us to help our kids make that distinction, and vice versa. People from different parts of the world would look at the United States and what our government is doing and find fault with that. And so I think it's important for us to look past nationalities, ethnicities, teach our kids that everybody in their lives deserves to be loved, respected, and included.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next for you? You have some really, really interesting concepts in your kids' books, and I'm always fascinated by how your mind is looking at the world. Do you have a new project that you're working on that can share a little bit with us?
Well, it's a bit of a secret still, but
okay.
It's a very unusual turn for me because it is sort of a fiction, nonfiction book. So it's a book about someone in history, but I guess it's one of those fake nonfictions. But you'll know more quite soon.
Well, we obviously we're going to have you come back when that book is available. Hey, one thing I'm curious. Do you have any advice for a parent out there whose kid loves to draw and color and paint? How would you encourage? What advice would you give to those parents that can help them encourage their kids to explore their creative voice and follow their passion and love of creating art?
Well, I think being an artist is all about observation. So I think supporting observation is really important, just pointing things out. And I know it could be harder for an adult because we don't maybe see the world with as much curiosity as children do. But I think it's teaching yourself to be curious about what you see and be surprised about what you see and point it out to your children. I think that's really helpful because you can't force anyone to draw, but you can point things out that are strange, unusual, out of the ordinary. And I think that would spark some sort of creativity, visual or musical or verbal. But I think it's really paying close attention to what's around you. That's at least what I do every day in my life.
That's really fascinating. You're not the first illustrator to say that. And I would never have guessed that one of the most important things to creating art is observing what's around you. I always thought it was like, oh, it's from your brain. You just create stuff. And it's like, no, you're telling me it's like really look and concentrate and really see what's in front of you.
Well, it is from your brain too, but your brain needs to be stimulated somehow. Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, I remember that people asked me if I was really inspired by nature. And I thought, I miss the subway so much because there is so much going on in the subway. And nature was just nature to me. It was calm, and you're supposed to be inspired by the waves and the sun and the leaves. But I'm inspired by people. And thankfully, I live in one of the most interesting places for that. And I need that stimulation. Whatever happens to that stimulation inside my head is my own business. And maybe, I know how to twist it around. That's my job, to make it come out as something interesting. But I think you still need something to observe and absorb first.
Yeah. And, you're right about adults kind of losing some of their ability to observe I know as a magician, one of the things that I count on is the fact that I can do things to make people trick their minds psychologically to say, hey, look at this. This is here. And then it really isn't there at all. And that's one of the things we count on. And I'm always amazed when, I drive by something every single day and then suddenly it's gone. And I'm thinking to myself, what was there yesterday? I don't, it's like, it drives me crazy.
This is so true. But you can train yourself, or you can train your eye if you want to pay attention.
Yeah.
It's very exciting to me. I never wear headphones when I walk around the city because it distracts me from the sounds, and I pay less attention to things. But I'm not a hound. I don't walk around searching for things, but I'm very receptive to things. And I also do what you do with your magic, because I shift the focus of a reader somewhere. Mm-hmm. But then maybe there is a little surprise waiting elsewhere. So there are tricks that you could do visually.
Yeah.
Or with text as well.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, even though I'm almost 100 years old, I'm going to start training myself to be more observant and to notice more things around me. Because here in the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville and the city of Boston, there's lots and lots of great things and lots of great people that I can be observing a little bit more closely.
Absolutely. Yeah, Boston's really beautiful and interesting.
Yes. Well, your books and your writing and your illustrations are very, very interesting. Remind everybody, please, where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about your great books.
Well, my books are available in all bookstores at this point, and you can order them online or from your favorite independent bookstore, which I support wholeheartedly. I have a website, which is Nayberg.org, and Instagram, of course, where everybody goes to, which is Z Nayberg.
All right. Yes, we definitely support people going to their local independent bookshops. You just give them a call and say, hey, do you have I Hate Borsch by Yevgenia Nayberg? And if they say no, just ask nicely, and I bet you they can get it there to you in a couple of days.
Right, or threaten them, and they will get it. Yeah.
There you go. I'm going to bring in some borscht, and I'm going to make you eat it.
Exactly.
We've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of I Hate Borsch, the new book from our guest, Yevgenia Nayberg. Hey, Yevgenia, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Francine Piriano Davila. She'll be here to celebrate cloud monsters. That's the next episode of the podcast. Hey, if you're the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love it if you could visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. We want you to visit that website because we want to help you celebrate your book to the world. So many ways we can help you celebrate your book. By going to readingwithyourkids.com, you're going to see a button at the top of the page that says Authors Click Here. By clicking that button, you can learn how you can be a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book. And check it out. It doesn't cost you a thing. That's right. Yeah, no need to pay anybody to facilitate your visit. Just think you'll be able to say, hey, I was on the same show that LeVar Burton and Jasmine Simon were on. That would be kind of cool, huh? You can also find out about a Certified Great Read program. This program was established 4 years ago, and it's really helped a number of authors in really great ways. If our panel believes that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read. And with that status comes a number of really powerful tools that let families know that your book is worthy of their consideration. Oh, and we have this amazing monthly promotion package that will give you commercials here on the podcast. It will give you messages to our 90,000 social media followers. Display your book on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. And we'll have your book on display. Now that the pandemic seems to be over, we'll be having lots and lots of live events, and we'll be displaying your book at whatever live event we're having that particular month. Check it out today. Go to readingwithyourkids.com. Click on that Authors Click Here button at the top of the page and scroll on down to the various services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Chris, I want to start by thanking our guest, Yevgenia Nayberg. Please be sure to check out I Hate Borsch. Also want to thank our sponsors, I Don't Want to Turn 3 by Gramps Jeffrey and Power Down, Parent Up by Holly Kinley. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Belcastro, Ashley Contouris. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.